Hey, welcome back to our 8th edition of our Excel series, Introduction to Excel. In this edition, we're going to teach you what you need to know to utilize Excel's printing capabilities to create brilliant output from your spreadsheets as you move forward. So let's move over to Excel. So here we are looking at Excel, and we're just going to be using this profit and loss for the Acme distribution company here for all our printing discussions kind of moving forward. So if you want to see how we created this, you can check out our previous video number 07 where we talked about worksheet aesthetics. But basically we're just going to quickly talk about different ways of getting to the page setup functionality within Excel. There's basically 4 different ways of doing that here just very quickly. The first way is to go to this file. If you hit file and print, then this brings up the printing capability. So you can see that currently by default it's in the portrait mode. If you click down here at this page setup, this will bring up the page setup functionality where you can do all the various settings of your printout. That's one way. Another way is to hit the shortcut key, Control P. Control P does the same thing. Then you can hit the page setup. You can also go to this page layout. The second way is going to this page layout. Now you can't change everything that you can in that other dialog box for page setup, but you can get to the page setup by just clicking on this little tab down here, and then that gets you to the same place. And that's the 4 different ways of getting to the page setup. So as you saw a minute ago, the default orientation for this spreadsheet is portrait. Now you can get some clues as to how Excel is formatting your output once you begin adjusting the print setup specifications. Now right now you can't see anything, but if I go and I get rid of the grid lines, which you go to File, More, Options, Advanced, scroll down a couple clicks, click off Show Grid Lines. Okay, so you can see here that you still can't see how Excel is planning on formatting this report, but if I go to Page Layout and I just hit Setup, and here you can see this portrait here is a definition, but I'm just going to hit OK, and now you can see this line here. So this is where Excel is currently putting a page break into our output. So that's not really what we're going to want. So we are going to change that to landscape. So that's step 1. Now we're going to have to adjust the size of this output, but we're going to have to do a few other things before we get to scaling. But the easiest thing typically is just to hit Fit to 1 page wide, and then it'll adjust the scaling automatically, or you can manually do it. Here you can select the paper size, so if you needed to put something in letter size or some other non-standard size, you can do that, and then you can change the page numbering options. You can go to Print Preview here, so we'll just really quickly look at what Print Preview looks like, which is not going to be what the end product should look like. But here you can see now that we now have the landscape orientation of the page that we wanted. So now we can see here that this lightly dashed line here has moved to the right slightly, but we need to get it all the way over past column P to get our whole report on one page. Also, one thing to note is that this document is almost 90 rows deep, and we're going to have to freeze these headers so that they show up on the top of every page, because 90 rows is going to be too much for just one sheet of paper. So the way that we do that is we go over here again and we click on this little icon and we go to Sheet. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the print area. So click into the print area box and click on the sheet. Now this column B, row 6 is the beginning of the body of the information that we're going to want to print. So I'm just holding down my left mouse key and scrolling down here to the bottom to capture the entire document, which goes down to row 89. I'm just going to let up. So you can see here now we have the print area set, and now I'm going to put row 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as my header. So rows to repeat at the top, I click in here, then I just hold down and I collect the top 5 rows. So now let's take a look at what our output looks like. So now you can see we still are not getting out to the far right margin, and our document is 8 pages. We can kind of click through and see, though, that we're getting the headers, but the last quarter in the total is still on the outside of our report. So that means we're going to have to shrink our report. Now, the fast way to do that, as I told you earlier, was to come over here to the page and hit Fit to 1 page wide. Hit OK. So now you can see here that we have a little bit of an issue in that it's printing the entire document, both the width and the length, all into one document, all into one page. So what we need to do is we need to go over here and just hit and remove that 1 page is tall, and then go ahead and voila, there is what we hoped for. Now we have the right width, and if I click through, you can see that my document is 3 pages, but I have the entire width of the report on a page, which is what we wanted. So now that we have the page area set and the header set and the orientation set and the sizing all set, now what's left is mainly a lot of aesthetic tweaking. So kind of the first one is dealing with the margins. So if we go in here to our page setup and look at the margins, here are kind of the margin options that you have. And I've already set this for horizontal centering. Now, because we have Excel figuring out how to size our document here, there isn't a lot really to do over here relative to sizing or centering the document, because that's kind of done for us. But let's say the way that would work is as if it were off, and let's just say we had the document at 50%, right, without the centering, we would have an output that looks something like this. Now the question would be is how do you want this to appear? Do you want this to be left justified or centered? If you wanted it centered, you would use that horizontal centering effect, which would center the document for you. So if that looks aesthetically better, then obviously you're going to want to change that one option. But because we have this fit to setting here, we really don't even need this because it's pretty much centered the way that it is. In addition to the centering, you can change the amount of margin that you're allowing on the left and on the right and on the top and on the bottom. I'm not going to change that for this document, but if you have a situation where you really need to squeeze something into the nth degree, you can reduce these margin sizes here. I could take it to 0. And you can see here, now you probably don't want it to look like that, but you can do it if you needed the extra real estate in your document. So you can just come over here, bring them back to what it was, and then it looks the same. So that's what you can do with margins and centering. Then finally, the last option is to add headers and footers. So again, going to the page setup screen, and we click on header footer, and then you need to click on whether you want to add a header or a footer. So if you want to add some things to footers, then here are most of the options here. So you can insert a page number, You can insert the number of pages. You can insert the date, the time. You can add the file path. You can add the file name, and this is very helpful, adding the file name, because as you add more and more files or create more and more Excel files, you're going to forget what you named that file. This will allow you to go searching for it if you have the name of it at the bottom of the output. And then you can include images as well. So on this, I've actually included an image in the header. But here, let's go ahead and we'll add the page. So this is the page number. Now this one is the number of pages. So you would want to add something like some text here in between, like, so that'll be say, for example, page 1 of 3. Then over here we'll put in the file name, and then over here we can put in the date. So this is, pretty typical setup you would see. So let's do a print preview. And here it's a little difficult to see, but if you look at down here at the bottom, you can see that we have the 1 of 3 pages, and then we have the file name, and then we also have the date over here. And then you can see over here I also put a logo over here in the top right. Now you'd have to adjust the margins and the different functions on the margin page so that you could get this to line up closer with the top of the title over here, but that is pretty doable. Now also, when you're doing headers and footers, you can, without clicking on these boxes here, or buttons, you can go ahead and just pick some standard ones. So they have standard items here that you can add. And you can also add text. So let's say this was a proprietary document. You can put that in the header, and then it added up here at the top. If you wanted to make it more prominent, you could change the font size of that as well. So if I wanted people to see it more clearly, you could do something like that. So that's it on headers and footers. Really important. You should use them. They help a lot. Now, as you recall, the Excel default template had certain printing characteristics that may not be what you want. Frequently, users will want their spreadsheets by default set up in a landscape mode. So I'm going to show you how to set up a personal template here so that you can just call it up, and then it will have your printing preferences set from the get-go. So here I'm just going to open up a blank file. And like I said earlier, you can tell here, if I were to go in here and say that this is my page layout on this template and take a look at it, in the print preview you can see that it is in the portrait configuration. So that's not what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up so that it is set up the way that we want it. I'm going to actually close this and open a new file so that I don't have that printing area already preset. So I'm going to create a new file. Then I'm going to go to page layout, as we've been doing. And I'm going to set this to landscape. I'm going to set it to fit 1 page wide. I'm going to center it. I'm going to put in a custom footer with the page number, the file number, and the date. That's really all that I want to do in this specific file, but that way I don't have to do this every time on a new file. So you hit OK. And then we're going to do a save as. Now, the one thing that's a bit different here is that we're going to save this down here as an Excel template, which is here somewhere, right here. Now, you may not have looked at this directory before, but under your documents, there's this custom office templates. Now, you don't really need to think too much about where this directory is, but I'm going to go ahead and call this personal template. There, now it's saved. So let's say you go and you open up Excel again. And the way you access that is to go into your templates. Click on Personal. There's our personal template. And now if we were to say this is the area we want to print, we just look at how that's situated. There you can see that it has our page number, the name of the file, and the date, and it's already got the landscape orientation. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe down below and check out our website. You'll see the link here on the screen. Thank you and bye.